The other thing you can do is just pick it up from this axle right there. Okay. Ready? Go ahead and set it down.
You could see the cracks starting to split in the tread, and by the time we got to Presbyterian Church in Kennesaw, where we were staying, it had already ballooned out. I knew right then that this thing was about to pop.
I remember I was pushing once and I looked down and I go, Steve, because the outside part of it had torn, right. And so you could see the inner tube poking out, and then as I was poking out, then the rim was pushing out. So it was like exploded from the inside out.
I didn't know that just the weight of the wagon and would really, make him give after just one day.
Rather than taking a bus down I-80, a group of 13 students and their art professor are hiking along county roads by foot, carrying their own supplies and wagon. The students are enrolled in an art class called Adventure Art by Hastings College, but they call themselves the Prairie Art Pioneers.
My idea was to challenge people to use creativity and imagination to, for themselves create a real adventure in the local area.
We're going on an adventure in search of some sort of artistic or creative inspiration.
Just the whole idea of going on an adventure where you don't quite know what's going to happen was really intriguing to me.
We had a meeting at the end of November, I think, and by that point it already kind of come up with the big idea, we're going to the Museum of Nebraska Art, but we're not going to drive.
Our first meeting with him, when he's like, yeah, we're going to hike, I was really surprised.
Everybody was like, what, do you really have to take that class? Can't you take anything else?
For something like this to work in a class type setting, you need to make sure that everybody that is there really wants to be there, because it requires, I think, more of you than just showing up and taking notes. You have to be personally invested.
We didn't know how mobile our wagon would have to be if we were going to be going over real rough terrain, and we didn't know how much room we needed or how much it would weigh in the end.
We were working on that wagon up until the day before we left, because there was just I've never built a wagon before, and I don't think anybody else had either.
There was a 2 or 3 day stretch really where we didn't know what we were going to do with parts of the wagon, and we were really worried about the steering and pulling mechanisms. We
were just going to have book bags strapped with ropes that students would kind of harness themselves in, I guess an ox would.
It'd be rough, but it's not comfortable, but it's smooth.
It works really well.
We might be all right. I mean, I don't think this is gonna.
I spoke with Terry, the guy from maintenance, and he told me kind of how not good that design plan was. That was just gonna rip apart people's shoulders. He kind of led me on to the idea of a lawnmower type mechanism.
In our class at Hastings College set out on an unusual field trip. Instead of driving or biking, 13 students and their art professor, they pulled their own wagon and supplies down county roads.
We had planned for so long, for this big adventure, and no one really knew what to expect, so the fact that it was actually starting it was really surreal.
Carolyn and I were from the same dorm, so we walked over together, we were all bundled up, so we were all still warm, nobody was sore yet.
I was really excited, but I was also really anxious. I was just can we just do it?
We started really strong. It was a great morale boost to have the paper and the news channel waiting for us before we even left.
All right, are we all ready? Yeah. Do we want to come up? Do we have anything No. We'll work on it. All right. I guess forward. All right,
we kind of hyped it up, I guess, in our minds, and I was like, I'm hiking to Kearney today. It's gonna be awesome.
I had thought about it, imagined, but I didn't know yet, and I was excited to know.
I thought I was oh yeah, this will be easy, no big deal. It's just walking. Nope.
We were strolling through Hastings, we're oh, we totally got this. And I remember we got to the other side of Hastings, and it had taken us almost an entire hour.
I remember getting to like the other side of Hastings by the middle school and just being dead. I was like, this is gonna be impossible. Like, there's no way 2 people could pull this wagon.
The whole time we were going through town, though, we also realized just how insanely heavy the wagon was, and that was unsustainable. Towards the outside of town was probably the most nerve-wracking because we had to cross a really busy road at that point. And there was a divider in the middle, so we couldn't just kind of like cut across. I remember we had to go around this divider. But after that, we were kind of on dirt roads, or nearly on dirt roads, for the majority of the trip.
It was dragging on. I was like, how is this gonna last 2 more days?
I've never like gone that distance ever in like a single day.
We saw Kennesaw for like 2 or 3 hours before we arrived at the church.
When we got near the end, like there were people way out in front, and then the wagon was like falling way behind, and so then we were getting really spread out.
It just seemed like we weren't even getting any closer, and then you know you have a whole nother day ahead of you.
Seeing the church and that sweet lady at the church, she was just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you guys actually made it. Remember, she told me she was halfway expecting to get a phone call that we weren't coming.
I was just so excited to just sit down and warm up and not push or pull or deal with the wind anymore.
The prospect of having to sleep outside the next day and traveling even farther to get to it, it just didn't seem like a good idea. I talked to my boss, who set me up with the phone number to Jim Wiest. Kind of like got really lucky that he was such a nice person and willing to let us stay at his house.
Today they're finally trekking their way through Kennesaw. The instructor, Steve Snell, says they're pretty tired and sore, but they're too far now to turn back. The Museum of Nebraska Art in Kearney is their final destination. They battled the cold today, Joe.
Yeah, they're going to probably regret that they didn't do it next weekend because it's going to be a lot warmer.
The second day was like our hump day. It was the day that we all knew what to expect, but we weren't quite to the light at the end of the tunnel.
After the end of the first day, everybody was exhausted. And starting out the second day, having a whole nother day of that, it was just like monotonous walking and walking and walking.
The second day, I was just definitely not as excited, not as happy to be there.
I just remember going on roads and being like, is this ever gonna get over with?
The significant challenge that they're actually on, that it's more than just an idea at this point, it's real and it's uncomfortable.
There was people who stopped and was like, oh, I saw you on the news, hope you're doing great. It's something that helped boost morale a lot, to know that we weren't doing this for nothing.
Well, we're with Hastings College. We call ourselves the Adventure Art Pioneers. The class is called Adventure Art. We're going on a field trip to the art museum, so we're walking it to get there. Very cool. Free cookies. Oh. Yeah. Thank you.
A man in his truck stopped and gave us Girl Scout cookies. And I thought that was the sweetest thing, because I think he had said he'd seen us on the news, and so he's just like, I'm gonna go help those people. They can have some Girl Scout cookies.
All right, you guys are braver than I am. We don't have much of a choice at this point.
We had the radio on, I think, for a lot of it. And we were trying to like get the radio station in Kearney to give us a shout out. And like, I don't think they ever did, or maybe we missed it or something.
I think, especially when people stopped and talked to us, it was just like a surge of energy. Like, yeah, we're doing this for a purpose. We're not just silly college students, you know?
Just thinking that we were getting to that house the second day was kind of nice. Like, we're not going to a campground, we're going to like a house. There's gonna be like hamburgers.
It was nice that we had a warm place to stay, and so everybody was looking forward to that. But then when we actually, like, there it is, we all like picked up the pace. We were gonna run with the wagon the rest of the way. And it just brought us back to life, knowing we had like warm food and a fireplace to look forward to.
All right, we got everybody. Ready? Let's give Dr. Wiest one more thank you. Thank you, Dr. Wiest. We appreciate it. Oh, the sun's coming out.
It was dark when we left. And so I was really happy that, despite how like comfortable some people were with like the warmth and the fire, and some people even got beds, like we were up and at it. because we needed to make it to the museum, I think by 1 o'clock.
We knew that we didn't have that far to go compared to the other 2 days. Everybody was more refreshed and excited to get it done.
I could see it. Once we were ready to head out, everybody was just pumped to just get going.
We're going to get there. It's just a matter of, do we have enough tires, and are we gonna make our time limit for the museum?
Spirits were high. I knew we could do it. It was like we had the hardest parts behind us now. One thing standing in the way, and that was what to do once we got past Fort Kearney and hit like the part where there's the overpass of Interstate 80 to get into Kearney itself.
I was kind of nervous, like the overpass over 80 is like, are we gonna have enough room? Are we gonna get hit by cars?
At that point, I knew I needed to make a phone call again. There was another unknown, is to let the police know that we're coming. But the Kearney Police Department, again, just surprised me with how generous and nice they were. And they offered to send a police car to be our escort. And in fact, they sent 2.
How many people can be like, yeah, I walked into town with the police escorting my wagon?
It made us seem like so official or like a big deal or something, so cars were kind of like slowing down, like, what are you doing? And then it kind of like solidified, like, this is the end, we're almost there.
I think it helps everyone feel a little safer with being on the highway.
What do you guys want to say?
It was like a treasure map. X marks the spot. There it is. We are so close.
After enduring a cold and painful experience, well, News 5 caught up with the group. They arrived in Kearney.
I feel so accomplished. I never thought I could do anything like this.
It was pretty challenging. At the end of each day, everybody was just like so exhausted. But today we were so excited to get here. We're like a couple hours ahead of schedule.
I remember being like ecstatic, basically, that we'd gotten that far, and just even making it to the sign that said Kearney. It was like, oh man, like I just want to touch it, you know?
I mean, I don't even know how to explain, like, getting to Mona. Relieved isn't even big enough of a word.
I felt proud. I think probably most people felt proud. We actually pulled it off. The wagon didn't break. Nobody quit.
The grand finale, being able to do that and completing the adventure was awesome.
You know, on the same hand, it was kind of a bummer. Like, it was just such a cool adventure. I mean, as miserable as it was kind of sad it was coming to an end, I guess.
Those 3 days I'll never forget, and I don't think anybody else probably will too that was involved. And that's like what this class and what Adventure Art's kind of all about. It's like we created for ourselves a genuinely remarkable life experience. What does it mean? I don't know. But we won't forget it, you know, and it was, whatever it was worth it.